Under a sharp October sun, the air over Gaza feels almost still for the first time in months. From the heart of Nusayrat, thousands of Palestinians begin to move, not fleeing this time, but returning. It's noon. The Israeli military ceasefire has officially come into effect. Along the Rashid coastal road, the long dust-coloured highway stretching north toward Gaza City, a river of people begins to flow. Families clutch small bags. Mothers hold the hands of children who can barely keep up. Men push wheelbarrows filled with mattresses, blankets and pots. Whatever was left from homes they had to abandon months earlier. The sense of motion is endless. It looks like an exodus in reverse. Journalists embedded along the road describe this moment as a collective heartbeat, a hesitant step toward home. For many, it's been nearly 2 years since they last saw their neighbourhoods in northern Gaza, areas flattened by months of bombardment. Here on the Rashid coastal road, hope and exhaustion mix in equal measure. Some chant prayers under their breath. Others wave white cloths from sticks, not in surrender, but in signal, marking themselves as civilians amid the tense silence of the ceasefire's first hour. Local volunteer groups distribute water bottles from makeshift trucks, shouting through megaphones for people to stay calm and keep walking north. The temperature rises. The sound of sandals scraping pavement becomes a constant rhythmic hum. Then the camera pans out. A wide aerial shot captures what words can barely describe. Tens of thousands of Palestinians stretching for kilometres, heading toward the skyline that once defined home. It's a biblical-scale march, not of protest, but of return. The ceasefire, announced just hours earlier, has triggered an immediate and overwhelming reaction. The Israeli military declared that at exactly noon, all offensive operations in Gaza would halt under the Trump-brokered 72-hour truce, paving the way for the first phase of hostage releases and humanitarian access. This fragile ceasefire, mediated by the United States, Egypt and Qatar, marks the first significant pause since fighting reignited 2 years ago. It's been described as a humanitarian window, allowing aid convoys to move freely and displaced families like those seen here to attempt the journey north. But on the ground, there is fear as much as relief. Is it really over? One man asks the camera, his voice barely audible over the crowd. His son, standing beside him, looks toward the horizon, toward the ruins of Gaza City. For nearly 2 years, the Gaza Strip has endured one of the most devastating conflicts in its modern history. Since October 2023, Israeli airstrikes and ground incursions displaced nearly 90% of the enclave's population. More than 67,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to Gaza's health authorities, and tens of thousands remain missing under the rubble. Entire neighbourhoods, Beit Lahia, Jabalia, Shuja'iyya, have been erased. Infrastructure is in ruins. Communications blackouts left millions cut off for weeks at a time. International agencies describe Gaza as uninhabitable. This ceasefire, fragile and temporary, offers only a glimpse of what normal life might look like if it can hold. The truce follows months of behind-the-scenes diplomacy led by US President Donald Trump, with critical involvement from Egypt and Qatar. It includes a 72-hour suspension of hostilities, during which 50 Israeli hostages are expected to be released in exchange for 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. In Washington, White House officials have framed the deal as the first brick in a longer peace process. Critics, however, call it a high-risk gamble, warning that any misstep could reignite violence and derail Trump's broader 20-point Middle East peace plan. On the ground, the ceasefire's success will depend on restraint from both sides. Back in Nusayrat, the flow of humanity continues. AFP TV cameras capture families pausing for shade under the skeletal remains of a collapsed bridge. Some sit on the roadside, resting their feet in silence. Others look into their phones, trying to call relatives up north, and the signal's still unstable. Occasionally, an ambulance passes, its siren muted out of respect for the truce. In one frame, an elderly man stops to raise a torn photograph, a family portrait smudged and folded. "I'm going home," he tells a journalist, "even if it's only for 3 days." That sentiment echoes through the crowd. For many, this short ceasefire is a test, not only of political will, but of faith itself. In Cairo, Egyptian mediators call it a miracle of persistence. In Brussels, EU leaders describe the moment as a fragile step, yet a necessary one. The United Nations has announced it will deploy inspection teams along Gaza's main arteries to ensure humanitarian corridors remain open. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the Israeli Prime Minister's office confirmed that security protocols remain in place and that any breach will trigger an immediate response. Hamas officials speaking through Al-Aqsa TV said the ceasefire is conditional upon continued good faith. The world watches closely. Aid convoys from Rafah are already rolling northward, carrying flour, medical kits, and fuel for hospital generators that have been silent for months. Each convoy is guarded by international monitors and Palestinian civil defense teams. Children wave as the trucks pass, waving not at the foreign flags, but at the hope of food and medicine finally reaching their communities. For those walking the Rashid road, none of that geopolitics matters right now. The faces on camera, sunburnt, dust-covered, tear-streaked, tell a story older than any headline. This is a story of return, a story of mothers carrying hope like luggage, of fathers whispering prayers into the wind. The footage, raw and unfiltered, captures the closest thing to peace Gaza has seen in years, if only for 72 hours. As dusk approaches, the sun begins to fall over the Mediterranean. The Rashid coastal road glows in amber light. People keep walking toward homes that may no longer stand, toward streets they might no longer recognize. The ceasefire clock is ticking. Each minute, each hour brings uncertainty. But for the people of Gaza, this fragile silence is a chance, a rare pause in the relentless storm of war.
احنا طلعنا